Well, I must say, the last time I was doing this, because someone was here last week, we did a spiritual audit, and I just have to say how impressed I was. Over 40 of you put your audits in the for me to have a look at. And so many of you have got a spiritual practice. And I thought, how amazing to have a community. I feel so privileged where so many of you are actually doing stuff in your homes to actually develop your heart and things. And it doesn't happen everywhere. A lot of people just turn up to church or whatever for the social, whatever it is. But the fact that people are working on it is absolutely fantastic. And I just thought I'd ask, you can shout out this if we don't get anything. Who has anyone taken on anything specific during Lent to do? Because Lent's that period where we're doing sort of sharpening up during Lent towards Easter. I've given up alcohol for Lent, so that's me. And anyone doing anything at all for Lent? Yes, what are you doing? Just shout out.
All kinds of politics and YouTube and whatever, social media.
You're looking at all the social media?
Getting rid of it. Nothing but business on phone.
Oh, you're only business, not politics and so. Giving up all that stuff on social media. That's great. Who else has done something for Lent? Yes, Liz. Changing the dialogue. What does that mean?
Yes. Instead of saying, I'm worried about you, Nicholas, I'm going to say, I am concerned.
So you're changing the dialogue. Instead of saying, I'm repeating it for the live stream. Instead of saying you're worried about you, Nicholas, you're saying, I'm concerned about you. Yes, that's good. To be aware of one's communication is absolutely fantastic. Anyone else doing anything specific for Lent? Yes, Carolyn. No alcohol for Lent. Thank you very much indeed. Well, you two at us at a party will be great fun. Yes. Anyone else? Yes. Yes. Sarah.
Mine's a little different, but I am allowing myself to process grief.
Allowing yourself to process grief. That's lovely. That's fantastic. Well, that's great. Yes, Ward.
I'm joining you and Carol.
You're joining me and Carol. That's great. Yes, and Bill is as well. Yes, it is the alcohol. Actually, my grandmother used to smoke 40 cigarettes a day all the way through her life. But her one resistance was she gave up during Lent. And I think it was just to prove that she could do it. And we were all amazed, going from 40 cigarettes a day to nothing. And then Easter Day, 40 cigarettes a day again. So anyway, I'm really impressed with, everything that everybody's doing. I think it's just so important. For me, it's what my life's about, to actually, work on myself in such a way that, we have the effect you can. And every time I think about it, when I'm sitting on meditation, I think, I'm only alive now. I'm only alive now. This is the only time I'm going to have to make some sort of impact or to make some sort of difference. So I better be as sharp as I possibly can be, And today, this is the sort of, I think, the third time I've talked about spiritual practice. Today, I just want to say a few words about meditation because for me, it's incredibly important, that aspect of it. I want to acknowledge meditation is not for everybody. And, some people say, well, my religion's in the mountains, and that's totally fine. And some people do other things. But it's always worth mentioning meditation and spending a little time on it just to encourage people who've not taken up before or whatever it is, just to have an idea of what it's about. And I think one of the things that really struck me, our last Archbishop of Canterbury before one, Rowan Williams, who's a lovely guy. Heather and I got to meet him once, and he said, and I think this is just amazing, he said, to put it boldly, meditation is the only ultimate answer to the unreal and insane world that our financial systems and our advertising culture and our chaotic and unexamined emotions encourage us to inhabit. It's the only answer to all that stuff. To learn contemplative practice or meditation is to learn what we need so as to live truthfully, honestly, and lovingly. It is a deeply revolutionary matter. I think that's such an encouraging thing to think about. When we think about all the stuff that goes on in the world, including wars and stuff like that, How do you stop that chain of thought that forces us into conflict, into things? And it is that breaking of the mind's control that meditation is about. I always like the description of meditation, which is a movement into poverty, which doesn't sound the most attractive thing in the world, I must admit. But it is a movement into poverty in that we give up the infinite riches of our thoughts, which, let's face it, we just think our thoughts are just great. So we give that up. We give up trying to control. We give up everything, and we just are there. We're just there, being present and witnessing our being. That's all we're doing. There's a thing which says, and it's always very difficult because, when you get into meditation, you think, I want to get enlightened, I want to have big experiences and stuff like that. But actually, all the gurus and stuff like that, they always say, well, that isn't what it's about. You can sometimes have, lights and emptiness and stuff like that. But actually, what it really is about is witnessing your particular aliveness in the spirit. And, your aliveness now is all there is. There isn't anything else. This is it. This moment is your aliveness. There is nowhere else to be. There isn't a higher realm to get to. This is really it. And, we can say that in a room like this, but when you get into meditation, you acknowledge that there is nothing more, that this is it, and you just witness. You witness being. It becomes the most important thing in the world. Simply being open and witnessing being going forward. And, you have that difference between, your mind, the mind that goes on continually, and the mind of meditation, and the greater mind that you focus on. And in the Taoist book, actually before that, the Meister Eckhart, who is the 14th century mystic, he described that relationship with God. And I think this is a really good description of meditation, of willing nothing, wanting nothing, and knowing nothing. You're just there. You're not trying to will anything to happen. You're in a point of not wanting anything to happen. And you're a point in knowing nothing. Because, when you're witnessing, as they say, the great I am, when you're witnessing yourself being, you don't really know where it's coming from or where it's going to. And you really have to acknowledge that. And in that meditation, you're in that place. This is what the Taoist Book of Balance and Harmony says. The shining mind, that is the mind that witnesses, the shining mind is always calm. In action, it responds to myriad changes. Even when active, it is essentially always calm. The wandering mind, and we know that one, is always stirring. In quietude, it produces myriad thoughts. Even when quiet, it is basically always astir. Of old, it has been said, always extinguish the stirring mind, don't extinguish the shining mind. The unstirring mind is the shining mind. The mind which does not stop is the wandering mind. The shining mind is the mind of the Tao. The wandering mind is the human mind. So I think that's really interesting. And when we go into meditation, we do acknowledge and we do rest in that shining mind. It's a matter of persistently keeping centered and balanced in the activity of stillness. It's being balanced in the activity of stillness. So you're really enabling yourself to see the essence of life. And James Finley, it's a great book, this, called Christian Meditation. Do come in, have a seat. It's a great book, this Christian Meditation. I do recommend it. And he says, this is how he describes a meditation. He says, free of all thought, in all its modes, you are in this moment free of all questions and answers, free of all problems and solutions. all that is agreed on or disagreed on. For a fleeting instant, there is nothing to prove, nor is there anything being experienced that could be proved. There is nothing to solve, nor is there anything about what you're experiencing that needs solving, or even could be solved. In the twinkling of an eye, you are fleetingly immersed in non-thinking awareness of the unthinking depths of what is. And I think that's a really great description. You are fleetingly immersed in the non-thinking awareness of the unthinking depth of just what is. And Thomas Merton, he says, meditation is a deep and simplified spiritual activity in which the mind and will rest in a unified and simplified concentration on God. Turn to him, intent upon him, and absorbed in his own light with a simple gaze, which is a perfect adoration, because it silently tells God that we've left everything else and desire even to leave ourselves for his sake, and that he alone is important to us. He alone is our desire and our life, and nothing else can give us any joy. It is a complete focus on being. And there is nothing more important than being. There is nothing more important. We are being with a wisdom that has been there for millennia. It is the wisdom that has been there since the beginning of time. And yet we think we know better. We think we know how to sort things out. We think, we're stable geniuses. We think we know how things work. But actually, it requires that humility to give up to the fact that that order that is at the center, that brought us into being, is that which knows us, is that which knows what is going on. And that view of meditation says there is more going on in the process than simply stilling the mind. It says that by stilling the mind and gazing upon being, you're actually coming into the presence of that being, and in doing so, opening yourself to being transformed by the will and purposes of God. And it really goes back to acknowledging God as being, or being as being a reality. And, not some sort of dream or thought or whatever it is. B. Griffiths said, for most people today, the very idea of God has ceased to have any meaning. It is like the survival from a half-forgotten mythology. Before it begins to have any meaning for them, they have to experience this reality in their lives. They'll not be converted by words or arguments, for God is not merely an idea or concept in philosophy. He or she is the very ground of existence, this beingness. We have to encounter her as a fact of our existence before we can really be persuaded to believe in him. To discover God is not to discover any idea, but to discover oneself. It is to awake to that part of one's existence which has been hidden from sight and which one has refused to reconcile and recognize. The discovery may be very painful. It's like going through a kind of death, but it's the one thing worth living for. And in meditation, we go into that place where we let go of all our grand ideas about ourselves and we witness being. We witness what is going on. Now, when I put out those spiritual audits, I did say, would anyone be willing to share just about their spiritual practice? And some of you kindly said you would be willing to do that. So, given what we're talking about the coming to me, I just wanted to ask a couple of people, really, just to give their experience and just so that they know what we're looking for. It's really, when did you start? What sort of thing do you do? And what effect has it had on your life? So I always used to say that, you're more likely to talk about your sex life than you are your spiritual life. When you're down the bar, you're not going to say, my meditation practice has gone for 15 to 20 minutes. You're never going to say that. It just doesn't come up in conversation. So anyway, I'm just going to ask a few, but I have pre-medded them, so I'm not doing that. We'll start with Triska. Now, just a couple of minutes, just to say, where did it start, what did you do, and what effect it's had in your life?
Good morning. So I started about 30 years ago. And I started because what I was seeing out in front of me, I thought, there's got to be more than what's here. And so I've started, and it has, of course, transformed over the 30 years and changed and taken on different shapes. And the last 6 months, I've started TM, Transcendental Meditation, which is twice a day for 20 minutes. And there's different types of meditation. We have meditation with seed and meditation without seed. And with seed there's something to anchor the mind into, which is, in my opinion, really helpful, because the nature of the mind is the monkey mind to just spin and think, and that's what it does. So when you anchor the mind into a mantra or your breath or specific movements, it gives the mind something to hold on to where you can find a sense of quietude. And I think the biggest myth of meditation is you're not supposed to think. And that your brain thinks, that's what it does. But the practice helps you drop into a place where you're no longer attached or riding the waves of thought. And that sense of stillness that comes. And as Nicholas talked about, opening the heart. And when you're in that quiet place, you can relate to yourself, to the world, to others around you from the place of the heart and not from your head.
What sort of effect has it had on your life?
What effect? I think I'm more able to respond rather than react.
Yeah.
That place of stillness, it's always available. It's like you go home and it's there for you. It's always available, and it cultivates that witness mind where you can respond and not react to life.
Thank you, Tricia. I so appreciate you sharing that. And I go to Andy now. And Andy, do you want to say a little bit about your practice? What you do and what effect you feel it's had in your life?
I started about 15 years ago, I would say, and it kind of corresponded when you arrived. I took it to sort of a new level. I change it up a little bit. The majority is a guided meditation with like a Deepak Chopra app.
Yeah.
I think I'm better when I'm listening to something, not as good when it's just nothing and quiet, so that's probably something I need to work on. Sometimes I'll just listen to the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
Just, and lately I've been listening to this Genius Wave. It's just sounds, and it lasts about 9 minutes. And then, in the survey I filled out with you, I said I was going to try to add 5 minutes, and I haven't been successful with that. But what I have been successful with is adding thoughts about Mary Magdalene, because I was so blown away by Andrew Harvey.
Yeah.
And the Divine Feminine and the Magdalene Revolution. So I'm thinking about her more now. And what it's done for me over the last 15 years, it's made me a better person. It's made me calmer, more peaceful, and happier.
Thank you, Andy. I so appreciate that. Really, that's nice. And Louise, I'm going to come to you now. And Lucy, you've been coming to the meditation. I've just been so impressed with your application that you've done over these years that we've been working together. What sort of effect have you found that it's had on your life doing something like meditation regularly?
Well, I started probably, I think, maybe 13 years ago, coming here in the mornings. Used to do one at 8 a.m. downstairs. And then I thought, this is interesting. And then I took a TM class probably 10 years ago. And I was pretty religious, consistent doing it. It's 2 times a day for 20 minutes. And I had having that mantra really helped me just center myself.
Yeah.
And again, it's not about turning off your brain, because you can't do that, but it's about coming back to that mantra. Since then, I was able to go just to the breathing. Now I'm back to the mantra. But it's just like Andy said, it really calms me down. And just like Trishka said, then I don't react. I actually can be more calm and reply. It's centered me. I don't do it often enough. I probably average 3 times a week. But I do, I started out with guided meditations, and now I find that distracting. And I like quiet, or just hearing the ambient sounds helps me sometimes refocus. And it has changed me. It's made me much more sanguine, more calmer.
Yeah.
So it's been helpful, and I wish I could do it all the time.
Well, Louise, I think we're all, I find myself completely always a work in practice. All of us are works in practice. When I'm in meditation, I find my thoughts, going on to, Formula One, whatever your thoughts go on to. There's a revealing myself there. I just know that's me. And I just bring myself back. I always love what Thomas Keating always said. He said, the practice is not following the breath. The practice is coming back to the breath once you've gone away. And that's so reassuring, because it means that, when you've gone away, you're doing the practice by coming back to the breath. You don't beat yourself up about it, because you just do it. It's just what's happened. And, we're so easy to beat ourselves up about who we are when we make mistakes. But that's who we are. And we just take it one step at a time, always, going from one to the next. Thank you so much. I really appreciate people sharing it. I will tap some other people on the shoulder over the next few weeks. We're going to have this sort of focus really on practice until Easter. We won't go on after that, I promise. We might do something after. I've got an idea of what to do after Easter. But I think Lent is a good time to do it. It's a time that's set aside for us to think, right, how can we be better people? How can we really focus on it? And given what's happening in the world now, we do want to create that energy where we can, and the only place we can do it is in our own lives. There's nowhere else we can do it. We have the opportunity to do that within our lives, and I really want to encourage you to do that. Good, we're going to have a piece of music now, and then I'll come back to you after that. So we always have opportunity for anyone to ask a question, share an experience, disagree with anything that's been said. Does anybody like to say anything at all? Sometimes we just have silence, which is... Anyone want to say anything? Well, I will read you a guru story, because I like guru stories. And this is sort of about meditation. And Yamada Mumon tells this story. And I used this in the 10 oxiding pictures thing that I did on Tuesday. Once upon a time, there was a young man of deep filial piety who unfortunately suffered the loss of both his parents. He felt a deep gratitude towards his parents, but they'd already died. He wondered if there was not some other way for him to express that deep feelings which he felt inside. Now, at that time, there was a wealthy couple who had many rice fields, much land, and a great fortune, but sadly no children. They circulated a notice on which they wrote, "It is now necessary for us to think about how we're to maintain our family lineage. We are willing to bequeath all our property to any conscientious young person who is willing to care for us in our old age. We wish to adopt a person of deep filial piety who will ultimately be the beneficiary of our property. Please assemble if you're interested." Many people gathered. The wealthy man then proceeded to test the mental ability of the people gathered. Almost everybody failed the test, and only 10 remained. Next, he led the remaining persons, each one to a different well, and instructed them, "Draw water from this bottomless bucket." And he gave them a bucket that didn't have a bottom in it. "Draw well from this bottomless bucket and fill this barrel by tomorrow morning." Now, no matter how many times you draw water with a bottomless bucket, you cannot fill a barrel. And most then and there threw up their hands and left. Only one person remained. the young man whose heart was so full of unexpressed gratitude he felt towards his parents. He didn't think of whether or not the barrel was getting filled or not with water. He knew only that he'd been told by the old gentleman in complete innocence he drew the water with the bottomless bucket, 1 drop, 2 drops at a time, and by the morning the barrel was full. Only one person had become a complete fool and heedless of whether or not it was possible, and done exactly what he'd been told. It goes without saying that the wealthy couple adopted him as their son. Meditation feels like that. It feels like drawing water from a well with a bottomless bucket, and it feels like you're absolutely getting nowhere all the time. You don't think anything is happening, but believe me, 1 drop at a time, that barrel is being filled, and it absolutely does make a difference.